Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
We lost a beloved childhood character and even more importantly, the man that played him.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, today we are talking about the death, but also the life and career of Paul Reubens, also known as Pee Wee Herman.
And that's today.
On Can We Talk About?
Today is my birthday, and my father said I can have anything I want.
Good for you and your father.
So guess what I want?
A new brain.
No, your bike. Oh, what's so funny, Pee-wee?
It's not for sale, Francis.
My father says everything's negotiable, Pee-wee.
I wouldn't sell my bike for all the money in the world. Not for $100 billion, million, trillion dollars.
Then you're crazy.
I know you are, but what am I?
You're a nerd.
I know you are, but what am I?
You're an idiot.
I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I? Infinity.
No, I'm not. You
You
are.
are.
No way. Knock it off. Cut it out. Oh, shut up, Pee-wee.
Why don't you make me?
Why don't you make me?
Because I don't make monkeys. I just trade them.
Oh, Pee-wee, listen to reason. Oh, come on.
I'm listening to reason.
Pee-wee.
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
Can we talk about the late, great Paul Reubens?
Oh, Pee Wee Herman. You have those moments where bits of your childhood slowly die.
Yeah.
This feels like a big part of, especially all the weird kids, all the weird comedy nerds that grew up watching this.
Yeah.
Feels like a weird, awesome part of your childhood is just over.
Yeah. I mean, I have feelings in general about this whole thing and Paul Reubens and this career and Pee Wee Herman and everything. Oh, I mean, positive, but like I went on like an interesting journey as a kid through Paul Reubens and Pee Wee Herman and stuff. But yeah, I mean, since he quite literally just passed away at the time of recording, we figured we'd dedicate a whole episode to him. Because I think, I mean, it's worth an entire episode. I think Pee Wee's Big Adventure was on our eventual we'll get to it list.
Yeah.
Which maybe we still will do, because I don't think this is not going to be a Pee Wee's Big Adventure episode, but it'll be in there because obviously that's a big moment in his career, which kind of jettisoned Pee Wee Herman into. I know you did a little research. I know a bunch in my head. Do you want to go through Paul Reubens?
Sure. When I first read it, and I was like, because there's a lot to unpack as a very complex person with a lot to unpack here. And I think most people know about the controversy. I was definitely, you've
two controversies, by the way. I
know.
Two.
And the second one, I had kind of committed to my brain that the possession of, we're going to jump into it. I'll start here. Paul Reubens actually was born in Peekskill, New York.
Was he really?
Yeah, which is local to us New Yorkers. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I feel like we can't talk about him without mentioning the stuff that's going to fly out of people's mouths immediately. That he was charged for exposing himself and masturbating in a movie theater. And then subsequently, he had child pornography that he said was part of his art collection. And he just died from a 6-year very private battle with cancer. I don't think anybody knew. And there's just a lot surrounding who he was. But, he was 70 years old when he died. He died overnight. And I mean, I'm seeing more posts of people saying that this is a very sad thing, that they're kind of like what we just said. But I haven't seen the negative good. He was a, child porn addict or whatever people are going to say. So I thought he was incredible when I was little. That weird comedy. It felt like a fantasy world, right? So Paul Reubens as the person, as the comedian, incredible. Like he started at the Groundlings, right? Like this is where he made his first break, was in the Groundlings. Yeah.
Well, wait, before we get there, to like at least tie up a little bit of what you were talking about.
So, go ahead.
So I'll say this. So, and we're not investigators, and we're basing this off of what were essentially what's
public
been reported.
Knowledge.
Yeah, public knowledge, right? we're not making any justifications on either side. But I will say this. So to work backwards in 2002, and Wikipedia has it actually as kind of like a good sense of timeline, which is he was filming the Elton John video, This Train Don't Stop There Anymore. And he found out the police were at his house with a search warrant. Jeffrey Jones, who we haven't done an episode on this yet, but I was just watching Beetlejuice. Obviously, we've done Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Jeffrey Jones, character actor of the 80s, went through his own like child porn case. And out of that, there was a tip that led them to Paul Reubens, and he had an entire collection of stuff, right? Now, to be clear, at least Devil's Advocate, it wasn't like, oh, here's an entire collection of child pornography. It was just erotica stuff, and that was like some stuff that was mixed in there, right? So I'll at least...
Mixed in there, Tom!
That from what I read, and at least his defense, for what it's worth, obviously, Jeffrey Jones, they threw the book at that guy, right?
Well, yeah, didn't look great for him.
No, did not look great for him. Paul Reubens, they dropped it to a misdemeanor charge of obscenity, and which he pled guilty to. And then when in a later interview, he sort of defended it of like, he just has a giant collection of erotica. And was the justification. It was like, it's just erotica. Like
I do too.
All over. Yeah.
And it's Harry Potter erotica that is written fan fiction. Anyone out there, I highly recommend Manacled. But also, this is Harry Potter's birthday that we're recording this. I do want to just point that out. It is July 31st. It's Harry James Potter's birthday.
Oh, man.
So let's get that out of there. But
and then to rewind the clock, the other controversy in the 90s.
I think everyone knows this one.
Yes.
Right? Everyone knows this one.
There was literally T-shirts of like Pee Wee Button Your Fly, right?
Yeah.
Button Your Fly was like the Levi's or whatever thing, where he was, this is before internet pornography. So he was in a adult movie theater, and Devil's Advocate. I hate the fact that I'm playing Devil's Advocate to a lot of like sexual stuff here on this episode. Like
it's an adult movie theater though.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. It's not like he was in a viewing of, the fucking Lion King in the back, the fucking jerking it. Here's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Why is there not more people doing that in an adult movie theater?
Okay.
How are you not just sitting there like, yep, I'm just going to be horny for an hour and watch some people fuck and then I'm going to leave?
Okay, so to be clear, and this is sort of like what we later learned, right? Which is, we don't want to necessarily think about it, but you're absolutely right. Everyone's in there doing that, right? I'm glad these theaters don't exist anymore.
Otherwise, what a waste of money for them.
I mean, this is before our time. You can do it on your phone now. You don't have to be in a giant movie theater with sticky floors. But because he was Pee Wee Herman, he was being followed by people and paparazzi and people, and then someone followed him into the theater, and he was doing that, and they got the police involved, and it's like, oh no, now you're exposing yourself in public. So...
Because that one, I was like, oh, fuck them. Like, Of course he was jerking in a movie theater. Good for him.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever.
But that was in 91, which was very close to, obviously, the time when, like, he had Pee Wee's Playhouse and a bunch of things. And obviously, you jump from Pee Wee's Playhouse to that guy is in a theater masturbating and arrested for exposing himself. And people aren't necessarily reading the deep headlines or giving him the benefit of doubt. Anyway. So, to be clear, so I think the 2000s thing is a little bit... the 90s thing is like... All right. The
90s thing, I think, made him a fucking legend. Everyone was like, good for you. Good for you.
Well, obviously, like, he was the butt of every joke. And then the rebound from that was he appeared at, I don't know if there's the MTV Movie Awards or forget what he appeared at. But it was an MTV thing, and he gets on stage, and people are applauding, and he just goes, heard any good jokes lately? And then that was it, and he's sort of like undid being the butt of the joke and just became part of it. And so, round of applause to him there, because he obviously came over it and, stole it back. It was the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards. He said, heard any good jokes lately? And then received a standing ovation.
That's so good.
But to rewind the clock, you want to go back to like where he came from and where Pee Wee came from and everything, because it's great.
Yeah, he was born August 27th, 1952 in Peekskill. His mom, Judy, was a teacher, and his dad, Milton. What a good name. Because he was born Paul Rubenfeld, not Paul Reubens. His dad, Milton, was a car salesman and was like a military guy and then car salesman. And they grew up in Sarasota, Florida, which, you know, his parents owned a lamp store, which is hilarious. But this kind of explains where his comedy brain came from, and like that almost circus-like quality is that in the winters, the Ringling Brothers would go down to Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And he was like friends with the big top families, as they were called. They were like neighbors to him. And so he kind of was part of that world, just like through them. And then he joined a local theater. And he was in some plays. And then in 1970, when he graduated high school, he went to Boston University. And then he left college after a year and went to Hollywood and started acting. And I think it was like mid 70s is when he was on. When was he on the Gong Show?
Oh, that was the 70s.
70s. Yeah. Okay. And then he joined the Groundlings. And I feel like the Groundlings, I mean, we've talked about it before, but the Groundlings was like the West Coast version of UCB, or, you know, it was their version of that. And so this was a character that he created there at the Groundlings. And it became like their first like reoccurring show, which is fucking awesome. But the name Pee Wee that he came up with was like, this was just an extended improv act that he did, but Pee Wee was a word that was on a harmonica that he had as a kid. And he thought it was like the funniest nickname. And then how funny would it be to make up a name for someone that's last name is a first name?
Yeah.
He thought it like coincided really well with what he wanted to do at the show, is that he really wanted people to think that Pee Wee Herman was like a real person. And I don't know if you remember, but like in all of the credits for anything he did, it said Pee Wee Herman as himself, always.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because it was not him.
Yeah.
But I think he created the character, and it says he was on, it was his first stage appearance was in 1977 at Groundlings.
Yeah.
So that character alone, like that is such a huge part of our childhood, right? Like massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that eventually leads, I mean, into the 80s, which, by the way, do you remember who like some of the original Groundlings other actors were who appeared with him? Because
he was like Conan O'Brien, right? Wasn't he there with Conan O'Brien and... who else
Phil
was on
Hartman
there?
was the main one that I remember.
Phil Hartman ended up being in the Pee Wee show.
He was Captain Carl.
Yeah, and he left after a year because he got SNL. Gee.
Yeah.
Lisa Kudrow, John Lovitz.
Yeah.
Conan O'Brien. I see the list now.
Yeah, he was friends with a lot of the people who would go on to do SNL. But to back up a little bit, so he did the Pee Wee
Playhouse was the show. Pee Wee's
Right,
Playhouse.
but it was the Pee Wee Herman show was the stage show.
Yeah.
And then that was going so well that they filmed it for HBO.
HBO is a special, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And it was the Pee Wee Herman show. And I remember as a kid in the 90s, after I grew up watching Pee Wee's Playhouse, they would randomly show reruns of this old Pee Wee Herman show from 1981. And it was a little different. It was a little bit more adult, but it was so funny. It was clearly like a send up of like these characters and like, you know, like 50s culture and like you know, kids TV shows kind of things. And it was fun and it was cool. And then, you know, Phil Hartman's there and it was great. It was just a good show and it was fun. And to work backwards, even as a kid in the 90s, watching a show from the 80s that led to a movie and a kid show in the 80s is kind of crazy. But Warner Brothers saw the Pee Wee Herman show, whether it was live or on HBO, and then they approached Paul Reubens and were like, hey, do you want to make a movie? And initially he was like looking at doing like a remake of I forget what movie
Pollyanna.
Yeah. Just Pee Wee as Pollyanna.
All right.
And then they were kind of going through it and everything. And then eventually when he was working on the back lot there, what are those called? The cabanas? I forget what they're called. Because they set him up to write. And then he kept seeing that everyone's getting around the lot where riding bikes. And somehow that like sparked something in him. And he asked if he can have a bike. And they were like, yeah, sure, you can have a bike. And that led to what eventually became Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Yeah.
Well, something that I just want to point out with the character Pee Wee Herman, and maybe more when he adapted it for more children, was like he was like a man-child, essentially, but you didn't know how old he was. Like, he was presented as like this completely almost like an alien, like no age, no sexuality. You didn't know. He was just like, first of all, the suit he wore, he borrowed from the Groundlings and said he would give it back, never gave it back. And the black bow tie, same story.
Yeah.
But just like the whole look was so strange, but also approachable. Because if you think about, if you were just to explain this without ever having seen it, let's create a show and or a character where this man dresses like he's in the 50s. He wears red lipstick. He has the whitest white pale face ever with bright pink cheeks. Kids are going to love it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would love to watch it again as an adult and on hallucinogenics. Is probably incredible.
But here's the thing that gets me. And this is the thing that I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know the powers that be at these studios and stuff. You know, they're always going after existing IPs and things people know about, right? Imagine it's 1985. There's this movie coming out called Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Unless you're from LA and have seen the Groundling show or randomly caught this one-off special that ran on HBO, who the hell is Pee Wee Herman? Who the hell is Pee Wee?
So I do know that he was on, like, he was a stand-up comedian, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Ish, because I know that he was always playing at Caroline's in the city in New York.
He always played as his character, by the way. Once he became Pee Wee.
And then he was on Letterman all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that made him kind of a better name. Yeah, people knew who he was, but he didn't get Saturday Night Live when he auditioned for it.
No, actually, you know who got the role instead of him?
Ooh, who?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, well, worked out pretty fucking well for him. He got to play the parrot in Aladdin.
Yeah.
So
everyone worked out. But that's what I mean. Like, all right, so even given his Letterman appearances and popping up on game shows and all these other like little bit things he'd show up in, I mean, I don't even have anything to compare it to. Like, it's like maybe some like YouTuber today, suddenly us turning around and they have a giant movie coming out.
That's
because
true.
It's one thing to say, oh, hey, he got a movie. Like, this was a tentpole release. This released in the summer of 85.
Yeah, it did really fucking well at the box office.
Yeah.
It did like $45 million.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
But that's the thing. It's like out of nowhere. It's insane. It just like, it did really well.
He got paid a lot of money for the show, too, from CBS. Like, a lot for that time.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, not to skip over this, too, because Tim Burton was signed on. And actually, I was going to say Tim Burton also like sent out a tweet or something, basically thanking Paul Reubens for his career because, so I don't know if you know this, because I watched an entire documentary about something else, but Tim Burton was an animator, right? He was working in like Disney's animation studios.
Yep.
Didn't want to be there. He kept like wanting to do all these weird dark things that Disney Animation doesn't want to do. And then he ends up and I think he does, was it Frankenweenie?
Frankenweenie, yeah. That's the one that Paul Reubens watched that convinced him to allow Tim Burton to direct.
And then Tim Burton and him were like, Tim Burton had said, like, he just got my sensibilities. He really liked Paul Reubens' like comedy style. They clicked. And you watch that movie and it's very much like weirder scenes, like the dream sequences and stuff tend to go in like a weird, like very, Tim Burton-esque direction. And you get like, it was just really well done. And I think the combination of Paul Reubens and what he's doing as a character matching with Tim Burton's style as a director, especially a young director, that was just magic. That was immediate.
I agree. I agree. And there is something to be said. I watched Pee Wee's Big Adventure, I don't know, like probably 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Again, I was just like, I want to watch it again. Just one of those, I want to watch this again. And even watching it, there's something to be said about Tim Burton's brain. And when you put those two together, like, yes, of course, we're always going to watch movies from times before we're like, this does not hold up. This is not okay. But there's just like a magic and what they did together that I still felt it as an adult. Like watching it, I'm like giggling at the stupid little things, catching on to the sarcasm, but also able to appreciate, like you said, the dream sequences, but also just like the background and the way that it felt like if a little kid was able to create like how they wanted it to look and go, but the little kid had the brain of Tim Burton and the acting chops of Paul Reubens, it was perfect. But also rewatching it as an adult, I was like, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like, I get why I love this. And I watched it way later. Like, I wasn't even born when it came out.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, but one thing I didn't want to miss too is keep in mind, this is also the movie that Tim Burton reached out to his buddy, Danny Elfman, and was like, hey, I'm doing this movie. Can you help me do the music? And he's like, I don't know. I'm a little busy with Oingo Boingo, but sure, I can stop and help you provide music for the movie. And created like one of like the most popular movie themes in history. But yeah, I mean, and you think about it, you back up for a second, and it's such a simple premise, right? He loses his bike and he just goes on an adventure to go find his bike.
It's like his best friend, his beloved bike.
Yeah. And it's that simple, right? It's just all the things along the way.
Think about a little kid. If you lost your bike, you're the one thing that got you, especially you and I both would ride our bikes to our friends' houses. We'd ride around the neighborhood like we were some little tiny bike gang. If somebody took my bike, I can't even think about that heartbreak that would cause you as a small child.
Yeah.
I get it, man.
And it was also like, even as a kid, I don't know if you were like this too, but I was always hooking up gadgets to my bike and like trying to like do, Yeah.
Hello. I would love when you'd put the baseball card in between the things so that when you'd ride, it would like piss everyone off. And it was like,
oh no. See, you know what's funny? That is extremely low tech. Me and the kids on my block.
Well, I was poor, Tom. I had 5 sisters.
I was also poor. I had to envy my other like middle class friends whose parents actually bought them stuff. There was this like thing called like the Bike Defender or something. And it was literally like this like little, I'm trying to find it. Oh man. All right. So in the 90s, there was this little thing that went like where you like your bottle, we never had actual like water bottles in our water bottle holder. Those things were like, that's to keep other things.
Who had that? Like we had those yellow, remember those Sips iced tea and like the icy Ecto Cooler? Why weren't they square? That's what everyone was drinking.
Oh, I got to find this thing. I wish I can call my friend who had it. But basically, it was this little thing that like, it was all voice activated and you would like press a button. It would tell you how fast you were going, or you can arm it like a security alarm for your bike. So if anyone moved it would just start wailing. That's
hilarious. And it sounds so annoying for parents.
Or my favorite is I would go to Toys R Us and buy blinkers for my bike.
Yeah. This is how I know we were in different tax brackets. You went to Toys R Us. Say no more. I sat with the same Christmas catalog from like 8 months before in the summer, pre-planning. Well, I know the toys will be cheaper next year because there's new toys coming out, so I might be able to get this.
But this was like a little battery-operated light. You'd connect to your bike and it would die after like a couple weeks anyway.
Which is exactly why my mom would be like, that's a waste of fucking money. But we did skip over something that's like one of my favorite fun facts about our boy. He went on the dating game in character in 1979, and he even won the date.
No, he didn't.
I swear to God, he went on there a few times, and one of the times he won the date. And he said it was a little like test experiment he was doing with the character, and he went to a cattle call audition, and they called him back before he even got home and left him a message on his answering machine, children, and he won the date.
As Pee Wee Herman.
Full regalia, Pee Wee Herman. And then in 1980, so the next year, he was like the asshole hotel front desk guy in Cheech and Chong's next movie.
Yeah. That was the first feature film appearance of Pee Wee Herman.
So it's got to be out there. The footage of him on the dating game. It's got to be out there.
Yeah. Anyway, so to fast forward a little bit. So after he does Pee Wee's Big Adventure, there's one thing I don't want to talk about. And oddly, it's not.
Well, let's just talk about the fact that in 2014, somebody bought a prop bike from Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and it went for $36,600.
Wait, the bike was still out there?
Yes, an original bike that was used in the Big Adventure. And the article I'm reading, it says, which isn't quite $100 million trillion billion dollars, but it's still impressive.
You know what's really funny? Because there was like this little universe of like Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Pee Wee's Playhouse, the stage show, all these things.
What's the last one? Big Top? Pee Wee's Big Top?
Big Top Pee Wee. Well, that's not even the last one. That was the second one, and I did not like that one.
Well, clearly I must have loved it because I don't even know the name of it.
We'll get there. But I was going to say, I loved like when you get to Pee Wee's Big Adventure, right? There's Mario. Who owns the bike shop? What's the name of the bike shop? Do you remember?
No.
Oh, man.
I smoked that out of me in high school.
Well, I'll figure it out as we're talking. But, was it Chuck? I don't know. I think it was Chuck.
I'm embarrassed that I don't know this.
It's the name of the bike store that E.G. Daly works at as Dottie.
Oh. It's a name.
Yeah, I think it's Chuck. And I think he because he comes to the basement. I just loved how there were like all these like little characters, Amazing Larry, and like all these other random characters, and like especially when they go to his basement and it's clear like there's an entire town of people that consider Pee Wee a friend, and there's like this entire cast of characters that we barely see, but I love that. I mean, we've talked about it before. I love world building, and like it leaves me being like, oh no, I want to go back to the town Pee Wee lives in and revisit all these characters. And
I know, it was so comforting.
Yeah, it was. And I also love the fact that, because obviously it's a little bit of fish out of water when you have like Pee Wee Herman, who it's like man-child Pee Wee Herman, but then you have Francis, who is just as much of a man-child, but he's just the annoying little kid who his
first
daddy.
of all, how did he have the money to give to someone to steal the bike? Let's start there. And how is Pee Wee going to give the $10,000? Like, as a kid, I was like, I would also give $10,000. My parents didn't even have $10,000. How was I getting it?
He'll get that bike, and then he got the bike, and then it was too hot, so he had to get rid of it. And so,
oh man!
Also, really random. Remember at the end, there's like the nun, like they're at the. I think one of the nuns, if I'm not mistaken, I gotta double check this fact, but I vaguely remember that one of the nuns is Charlie's mom from It's Always Sunny.
Ready for these fun facts?
Oh yeah,
Rob Zombie and John Singleton were production assistants on there. Rob Zombie was a PA on Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Oh, Pee Wee's Playhouse.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, wow. Who was the music video in like that they accidentally interrupt?
Oh, I don't remember.
Also, I am correct. It was Lynn Marie as Marion, an actress who portrays Mother Superior in Kevin Morton's film.
You know, like the gibberish that Jambi used to speak?
Yes.
My mom would be like, Amanda, clean your room. And I'd be like, I would try to speak it back to her like it's a secret language. She doesn't know.
Jambi?
Jambies.
Well, we lost Jambi, like, I want to say it was last year.
Oh.
Did you know that? Am I
No.
bringing stuff down? Yeah.
Also,
which is
spent my whole life calling her Jambi. That's
first off, it was a man. All right. Second,
I'm not doing great.
No, it's okay. I forgive you.
It was a man?
Yes. A flamboyant man, but it was a man. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's how accepting I was as a young child. Whoever he wanted to be, I accepted.
But that was the thing. I want you to put that into perspective and figure out the people we are, right?
Yes.
Paul Reubens filled that show with outsiders and people from where, like, it didn't matter, right? Like, Elvira was like one of his like best friends.
Yeah.
Right? People from like all over, especially like that scene and the Groundlings and like the late 70s. He was just buddies with everybody. You look at like the deep list of people that showed up for like that TV show alone. Beyond that, all the guest appearances.
Lawrence
and stuff.
Fishburne as a cowboy. What was his name? Curtis?
Cowboy Curtis.
Cowboy Curtis.
Cowboy Curtis. Phil Hartman was Captain Carl, of course.
First of all, when was the last time you looked at a still of
Cowboy Curtis?
Yes. And the hair on his face is so off-putting. It's so off-putting.
Also, I don't know how I missed this, and this is the bigger one. Yes, Lynn Marie Stewart played the nun in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but then she played Miss Yvonne.
Whose hair won an Emmy, by the way. Her hair won an Emmy.
Who was the male lady? Reba? The male lady?
Oh.
I love how the notation is
sad. I don't remember this stuff.
It says a mail carrier who is often confused by the rules of the Playhouse. Yeah.
And it's funny because in the third season, it's only like 3 episodes, and it's because there was a strike by the Writers Guild of America.
Is that real?
Yeah, 1988. I was a whopping a year old.
And also, not to mention, right, first season, one of the young Playhouse gang who I think they didn't have a Playhouse gang in the third season. I think they nixed that idea. But anyway, they were Natasha Lyonne was one of those kids.
Oh, yes, I do. I did read that. And I did not know that until just reading it today while this was happening. But I know you don't want to talk about it. But we should probably talk about Benicio del Toro and as the dog face boy and Big Top Pee Wee. Talk about off-putting hair.
Okay. Here's the thing. And I know I'm not alone
controversy, though. Let's just say
this
really? Because, okay, so originally, Danny Elfman had to redo the entire score because originally the film was being produced by a completely different studio.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they said, okay, you can take it, but you can't use any of the elements from the original score.
Oh.
And I also think it wasn't great. I don't think there's anyone that's going to be like, oh, it was my favorite. I think we all just kind of started to be like, it's not good. But the score is pretty bomb. It's real. It's pretty crazy.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's just listen back to it. Yeah.
Okay. So wait, just to be clear, so this is Big Top Pee Wee.
Yeah.
This is 1988. And by the way, in the middle of this, right, he does the voice in Flight of the Navigator of like the weird alien spaceship thing.
Yes. I did not know that, but yes.
I think the thing with Big Top Pee Wee that like throws me off a little bit, right, is first off, obviously it's a very different movie, right? Because it's not directed by...
Oh, for sure. And it's Danny Elfman's first big movie. Just like the other one was Tim Burton's first big movie. This is Danny Elfman's. So... Well,
because did Danny Elfman do all the music in the first one or just the theme?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I think the thing that throws me off too is like... It's Pee Wee Herman, and now we're supposed to have this, like, I don't know, love triangle?
I don't know. It is weird. And, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was very young watching that. So, like, I probably watched both of these, like, 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
My brain wasn't there yet. I didn't know what half the time what the fuck was happening in that movie.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't really care about this. Like, where's the funny, goofy shit? So, it was a very different movie. So what studio was the Big Adventure?
Warner Brothers.
Okay, so then what studio ended up being Paramount? Okay, so that's why Danny Elfman had to redo all the music. That makes sense. But still, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, all right. So let me read some Wikipedia stuff here to like at least put some context here. So it says following the success of the 1985 Warner Brothers film Pee Wee's Big Adventure, Paul Reubens signed a development deal with Paramount to write, produce, and or direct additional projects for the character of Pee Wee Herman. Now, the way I read that is that after Pee Wee's Big Adventure was a gigantic success, right? Made over $40 million on an $8 million budget. Obviously, people are clamoring for Paul Reubens. He wants to do more stuff. And Paramount came calling with a better deal probably than Warner Brothers had. And maybe part of it is the fact that they also offered him the option of like directing or whatever it might have been, right? I'm just speculating. But he ends up leaving Warner Brothers to go to Paramount. And then Big Top Pee Wee was the first movie in this deal. And here's the plot of the movie, because I feel like not a lot of people, I think, have seen this versus like Big Adventure or even Pee Wee's Playhouse. It's Pee Wee dreams of being a famous singer. That's our carrot in this movie. He awakens and goes to work on his farm. So now he lives on a farm instead of his really cool, like toy house that he had in Big Adventure. Later, he has lunch with his fiance, school teacher Winnie Johnson.
That's where it lost me.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, Pee Wee, like we had just talked about, is like this nondescript, could be anybody, any age, anything. I didn't love that.
No. And I think that's the thing, right? Because even like, I think part of the charm is he acts like a kid. And even with like E.G. Daily, right? In the first one, where she's like, come on, Pee Wee. Like, and like, that's my best E.G. Daily voice, by the way.
I believed it.
Is she clearly likes him, but it has the very much like kids in the schoolyard.
Innocence. Yeah. Those little crushes you have on like, someone for 14 seconds. Yeah.
Right. And every time she shows affection, he like calls himself a rebel and then like blows her off and then laughs about it because he thinks it's funny. Right. He doesn't take it seriously. This movie opens, he's got a fiance. And like, I don't know, we're supposed to believe that Pee Wee's got on a knee and proposed to some, it's weird. And he's also childlike. right? So kind of like, it's like, I don't know how I feel about this.
I know. Okay. I think
Anyway.
it just felt uncomfortable. I'm not going to
Yes.
ever watch it again. Let's be honest. I'm never going to watch it again. But it felt very uncomfortable. Like I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then when does he? Okay. So when does he get arrested?
Oh, in life or
In
the movie?
life.
Okay. That's not until 91. So we still, after Big
Okay.
Top Pee Wee, we still have to do Pee Wee's Playhouse, which is for CBS.
And that's in 86.
That begins in 86 and runs through 1990.
And he
Right.
made $325,000 an episode, which in that time is
Yeah.
a butt ton of money.
I know. I got to say something. There's only one other, and ironically enough, it was on CBS also. There was only one other like kids show that I felt sort of captured the essence of what Paul Reubens did here. And by the way, I want to give credit where credit's due. A lot of what happened, the creativity aspects of Pee Wee's Playhouse, all the different animation styles, all the different storylines and everything came from his group of friends and people that he worked
That
with
he
over
knew.
the years.
Well, Pee Wee was based off of a kid he went to camp with.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But with all of that, they made a very, very conscious effort to do right by doing kids programming. It wasn't them being like, oh, hey, we got free money. Let's go do what we want. They were very, very conscious, and Reubens especially, about making a really good kids show and something that was full of heart and entertaining, but like a sort of like, and I forget where the quote was from or wherever it was mentioned somewhere, but basically his idea was he wanted to show kids that being creative was okay and like to be themselves. And
It's really beautiful.
yeah. And if you look at like all the people he worked with over the years, like it seems like Paul Reubens, because I think it was part of him too, he latched on to the outcasts of the groups, right? He latched on to the people
he grew
who
up
weren't.
next to the circus families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the weirdest of the weird.
Yeah. But he wanted it to be, it was greatly influenced by a lot of like the claymation shows and Mickey Mouse Club and Captain Kangaroo and Howdy, like all these things from
He was
like,
a big Howdy Doody fan, he would always say, right? Yeah.
yeah, you know, and he made that. He built that little world. And yeah, anyway. And Zombie was great and Conky and it was just all the characters that would show up. There was such diversity and realism to everybody. Like, I love that about the show, even looking back. Like, it was just a good show.
You know, like you do a character test to people when you meet them, and you're like, hey, have you ever watched this? And they're like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Like, I can't tell you the amount of people I've met. And they're like, Will Ferrell is not funny. There is not a single Will Ferrell movie that is funny. And I'm like, I fucking don't want to spend any extra time with you. If you can't laugh at the stupidity of, do I think he's the funniest? No. But can I laugh? Yes.
Yeah.
So there are people out there like that, right?
Yeah.
I remember being like elementary school age and going to a kid's house, and the dad was so excited. So it's probably like my first couple sleepovers, maybe 4th, 5th grade. The kid's dad was so excited. He was like, oh, guys, I got this movie. And it was going to be Pee Wee's Big Adventure, right?
Yeah.
So this is like 95, 96, all right? He's probably so excited to show his kids' friends, like, they're going to love this movie. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And I remember being at the sleepover, and there was 3 other girls. And there was only me and another girl that thought it was funny, and the other 2 thought it was stupid, and they wanted to play that game where you're at the mall and it's a board game with credit cards. And I remember thinking, like, this is a really poignant moment for me, and like the people that will think the same comedy I think is funny is funny. And like one of my best friends from growing up, like, we talked about how much we loved this. Shout out Athene. How much we loved Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like, we loved this stuff and thought it was funny. And those are the people. Like, if you ask someone if they thought Pee Wee's Big Adventure or Pee Wee's Playhouse was not funny when they were a kid, do we want to be friends with them, Tom? Really? Do we want them around? And I'm not including your wife because I know she wasn't allowed.
No, but you know what's funny is, and I was going to say this is, and this was what breaks my heart a little bit, is her parents were tainted by the news cycle, and they're like, "Oh, you're not allowed to watch that. That guy's a creep."
Oh,
and it's like,
God, and I kind of, up until today, I kind of had it in my brain that, I don't know, struggling with this.
Hey, he's not what was it, Jeremy Jones, the Jeffrey Jones, That guy.
That's super bad.
Yeah,
It's bad. This is really bad. It's extra bad.
Keep him away from Ferris. That's why he showed up at his house. 17.
Oh my God.
That's sorry. But anyway, I think Top Pee Wee, skip it. Just don't watch it. Here's the thing. I'll give a little bit of credit here.
It's not my really thing. Backing. We're like, let me tell you why you don't like it anymore. You think you like it. Let me tell you why you don't.
No. Here's where I was going to go with this is clearly they tried something, right? And knowing his career and like this is clearly like a send up of because like a storm comes and then all of a sudden like the storm clears and there's a giant circus that's just sitting there, right? It's
First
very
of all,
much
that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah,
like that would have been dope as hell if that happened.
But it's very much, you mentioned what he grew up with, and this is very much like a take on Wizard of Oz kind of thing, right? There's a lot to it, and it's them clearly being creative, but I think it's such a harsh turn away from what people loved about Pee-wee in Big Adventure that it's just like, oh, you lost us because now, Benicio del Toro is a dog. So
really was a dog. Really was the dog-faced boy.
Yeah.
But okay, so do you think that if he had not been arrested in 91, this career, the trajectory of his career would have continued to go up? Because let's be honest, you can have a bad fall as an actor, especially in like a movie series. Like you can have the bad fall and come back and be like, listen, the second one didn't do as well as we thought. Why do you guys think? Let's revisit it. And they could have had a third big giant, in 1992 that was similar to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Or do you think that the people that loved Pee-wee's Playhouse, we were starting to grow up and grow out of this?
Well, that was the thing. So to be clear, right, because I think this is the part that gets buried a little bit or there's assumptions made. They did 3 seasons on Pee-wee's Playhouse, right?
Yeah.
He was doing really well. And after the 3rd season, he originally agreed and said, I'll do 2 more seasons, maybe even the possibility of a 6th. But he was like, I don't want to do 6. I'll do 2. And then eventually he just said, he's been playing this character now for over 10 years, right? People don't know who Paul Reubens is. They know who Pee Wee Herman is. And so he was just like, I want to take a pause. I want to work on some other stuff. And
like
so,
being in Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Yeah, I don't blame you.
Well, that's later, but this is just before like the end of 1990 where he says they'll do 5 seasons. They'll do 2 more seasons but he needs a little break first. And so he goes on break and it's
to visit his parents in Sarasota, Florida.
Right. And it's there that he goes into an adult movie theater to, relieve some stress. And then someone calls the cops because, he was in there. And the thing is, too, I think what didn't help is, right, you had, like, he was very much trying not to look like Pee Wee Herman. Was that
part
what
of a police sting. Yeah, I just read it.
Jeez. But he was very much not trying to look like Pee Wee Herman. So he had long hair and, like, a goatee and a beard. Like, he looked like he belonged in Florida. But but he didn't look like Pee Wee Herman. I mean, if he got arrested and he looked like Pee Wee Herman, that probably would have not been that would have been a harder recovery. Anyway, I mean, the backlash to that was gigantic, right? Everything that was Pee Wee Herman was just removed from places, right?
Yeah.
He was a pariah. And so eventually he pleaded no contest to avoid any charges, and that was it. And he just did some community service, and everything was what it was. Out of that, he appears on the MTV Video Music Awards, sort of retakes the joke back, right? Was it seemed like people were making fun of him constantly, and then he just got up on stage and, was like sort of part of the joke, which
he said like the saddest quote when he was in an interview after all this, or this may be the second charges, but he said, the moment that I realized my name was going to be said in the same sentence as children and sex, that's really intense. That's something I knew from that very moment. Whatever happens past this point, it's already out there. Something's out there in the air that's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, then he starts doing these smaller parts and showing up in some random movies and things. He shows up in Batman Returns as the Penguin's father. He shows up in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Matilda and Dunstan checked in, which were the ones I remember.
I loved that he was in Matilda. That's one of my favorite books / movies of all time. Yeah. I am a Roald Dahl kid through and through. Also, not the best person, but he was a voice in Nightmare Before Christmas, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that was the thing. I feel like between Batman Returns and Nightmare Before Christmas, it seemed like Tim Burton threw him some bones. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm making assumptions now, but like he did do a bunch of work in Tim Burton movies like that. So he was doing that.
You're forgetting a pinnacle.
What's that?
Like 90s, 2000s kid role that he got. He was the voice of You Don't Know Jack.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
That was like, I remember being like, holy crap, this is Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I think growing up, I don't know if you had this too, but every time he would like pop up somewhere as Paul Reubens, right? Like in Dunstan Checks In, he's like the exterminator guy.
Yeah.
In Matilda, he's the FBI agent. Every time you're like, oh, wait, that's Pee Wee Herman, but not Pee Wee. Like it's the guy who played Pee Wee Herman. And it was almost exciting because it was like, oh, I was almost like excited to see him in other things. And then
same.
One of the other things he was in that I feel like we got to do an episode on in general, because it's a movie that I think no one talks about. It's
Mystery Men is what you're going to say, right?
Yes, I'm absolutely going to say Mystery Men, where he played the spleen. And that was the movie, like, I
but
think
the weird bumps on his face were so gross.
Gross, yeah. But that's what makes him good. And that movie just in general, like, is like, it's, first off, I want to be clear about one thing that annoys the hell out of me as we pass over this thing. There is a movie that features a Smash Mouth song called All Star on its soundtrack, and everyone talks about it. It's Shrek. But guess what? All Star was on the soundtrack for Mystery Men, including the music video, which was filmed with like alongside the movie and everything. And the music video even has clips from the movie that were cut out of the movie, because it was made for the soundtrack.
Okay.
So everyone's like, oh, All Star. Yeah, from the Shrek soundtrack. No,
don't hate on
Mystery Men
It's not his fault. He lives in a swamp. Okay.
And this used to be a bigger deal
also,
than it is now.
Let's not even talk about Smash Mouth, because he came to Bethel Woods, which is by us 2 years ago, was on stage, was so hammered. It was like a beer or wine festival up at Bethel Woods. Do you know the story?
No, but I know that he's basically in the last couple of years become like, oh no, that's not
so fucked up. A girl took a TikTok of it, like back in the fresh TikTok era, of him so hammered on stage, he was doing the Nazi salute. He was telling people to go F themselves, like really awful things. So Smash Mouth is no more. Yeah. So they didn't deserve Shrek.
Yeah. So to be clear, Steve Harwell of Smash Mouth is
bad man.
Yeah, no Smash Mouth anymore. But the movie itself, by the way, just to be clear, the music video was directed by Mick G, who I think also did the movie, and then has all the characters from the Mystery Men, and also includes a cut scene from the movie featuring the Waffler, played by Dane Cook, which also
Dane Cook.
Maybe they can hang out together and just be terrible footnotes on people's histories anyway. I just had to quickly go down a Mystery Men rabbit hole for a movie I think deserves a little bit more. Also, Mick G directed the music video, but not the movie. I just want to point that out.
Fucking hilarious. I have not watched it. A Netflix special came out in the 2015-16 era, right? For Pee Wee.
My son watched it. Yeah. Okay. And I saw him watch it.
Because Joe Manganiello's in it. Manganiello. Joe Hot Guy is in it.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I will say this. I didn't watch it fully, but I did see enough of it to feel like high definition and Pee Wee Herman 20 years after we saw him initially.
Was it sad?
It's a little sad because before it's like, oh, he's childlike, and now it's like, oh no, it's like his face is stretched and he's a little like thinner, and it wasn't fun to watch.
That makes me sad.
But that's why I watched, like, he popped up in 30 Rock, right? Did you remember the episode on 30 Rock?
Oh yeah, and I that was the one thing is like when he would pop up on things, wouldn't you just be like, yes?
Yeah, exactly.
There he is.
Oh, it's Paul Reubens. Yeah.
Oh, Paul.
But he was supposed to be doing more Pee Wee movies for Netflix.
Well, now we know he got cancer because he said it's a 7-year-long battle with cancer. So if it was 2016 that he did the Netflix thing, kind of adds up. It's probably when he was diagnosed is right then.
Yeah. So, and not to mention in the middle of this too, he also did a stage show. I think it was the new Pee Wee Herman show that played in New York. I vaguely remember missing it. I was kind of annoyed that I missed it by the time it ended its run. But he had a little bit of, like a resurgence a little bit. Went back to his roots doing stage show at Pee Wee Herman stage show. By the way, apparently he went on to reprise his role as the pilot droid Rex in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So apparently you can hear his voice as
amazing
a pilot droid. So
it just makes me kind of sad because there is a certain magic for me, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, yes, but Pee Wee's Playhouse was really like I was watching that kind of live time, So that as a kid who was a fantasy kid, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. Like I'm a kid that dove into fantasy to escape what was happening in my real life. Like I counted on those things. That for a lot of me was books.
Yeah.
But things like this, like it felt like a big escapism, but also that world he created. Like when I would close my eyes at night, it would be like, I wish I could go there. That would be so cool. I could sit in Cherry and I could hang out, like he did that. And I remember reading a quote when I was doing the research all of 35 minutes ago that said that he just wanted to create a world where kids could be wild. And like he was super hyper. As an adult thinking about this is like, there's a lot of little kids that are really hyper and their parents just want them to sit still and be quiet. And he created a world where it was okay to be hyper and silly and stupid and not make sense and just be a damn kid.
Yeah.
And also taught me how to be sarcastic. So thank you very much. Between him and my mom.
I got to say, I've been reading over a lot of the things that people have said, like celebrities have mentioned, like, tweets or X's, whatever they're called now. And there's one thing that keeps coming up and it's really heartfelt.
I was just reading O'Brien's?
No. Well, I don't know. I think it might have said something like that too. Cause I saw a few people say it, but I'll read Corey Feldman. I mean, you never know who's real these days anyway, but I think this is
poor
the real Corey
freaking
Feldman.
Corey Feldman. That's another person. We could just do a whole episode on him.
Corey Feldman said that he's obviously devastated. He said, we just spent my birthday texting each other back and forth all day. So many people, if you go look at like other celebrities and like what they've said about him.
Brian said about the memes he would send all day long.
And this is one from David Hasselhoff, which this is a deeper rabbit hole I kind of want to go down. David Hasselhoff, Paul Reubens was a great, great friend. He gave me the Muppets for my birthday and never forgot anyone's birthday from our class. He was in my class at Cal Arts and roommates. He was always kind to me and everyone. He will be missed. So first off, David Hasselhoff went to Cal Arts with Pee Wee Herman.
Also, my information must have been bad because I said he went to Boston University for a year. So maybe he went to LA and then went to Cal Arts?
Maybe. I don't know. But I will say everyone says he never forgot a birthday. He never forgot a birthday.
That's what Conan O'Brien's.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call them tweets.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, you could eat a dick. But he basically said that everyone, and he said, and I mean everyone's birthday was remembered, and he would spend the day sending nonsensical memes and messages all day long. Like, it's one of those things, right? When you forget someone's birthday, Facebook has made it very easy for all of us to remember a birthday. But it feels special, right? And so when you're at that caliber, isn't it cool to think that like people at that caliber, he even thought to remember their birthdays and make them feel special on their birthdays, like as if David Hasselhoff needed to feel any more special.
Yeah.
And Paul Reubens knew that they do. They still need to feel like freaking people. And he spent his whole life not being himself, being a character for the enjoyment of other people. That's got to be so isolating and polarizing. And it's like his life is kind of sad. It's like really sad.
I mean, that's the thing too, is you juxtapose. Yeah, we'll go with that
you
one.
got it.
That concept of like the person we knew he always was, right? There were these things that hit him because he's a human being, or I don't know, the 2002 stuff. I feel like that deserves a deeper dive, but now is not the time necessarily. But I will say the thing about him too is everything you hear is how kind he was and loving he was. He was accepting of everyone. And I think
his best friend was Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
Did you know that? That was his very best friend. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said she was his mentor too.
It's just the fact of like, again, looking at all the people that he elevated and like took along with him on this ride when he finally got a chance was all the people he worked with over the years. It was like, hey, like I'm going to bring my friends along. Like that was him. And then, I didn't mention it before. The other show, I think, and it was toward the end of my childhood anyway, was Weird Al had a Saturday morning cartoon show on CBS, which it didn't last very long. But through that, I will say, I think he set the tone for a generation of humor and like just fun and like creativity. Like we needed that. And,
Yeah,
you know, because
I agree.
especially in that time, right? It was all commercialization, right? Everything was toys. It was all G.I. Joe and Ghostbusters and all these other things. And then you had this one show that I remember that was the one I clamored for, was catching Pee Wee's Playhouse on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Because it was fun and energetic.
Not
and,
only that, let's just talk about that for 1 second. And I've been thinking about stuff like this a lot, is there was a certain magic about Saturday morning cartoons, Saturday morning kids shows.
Yeah.
And it does not exist anymore. That you had to sit down at a specific time with your bowl of cereal in those weird plastic bowls that had the straw built into them to watch the show that you wanted to watch, because in, 35 minutes, it's gone. You can't watch it again.
Yeah.
And very often, if you wanted to record something on the VCR, you'd have to find a video that was probably from your dad's porn stash or had like a, third birthday party over it, and you'd get in trouble for recording over it. Whatever the fuck it may be, there's a magic of that like Saturday morning cartoon kids show thing that just like does not exist anymore. And I feel like the Pee Wee Herman show to me is like, that is where it started for me.
Yeah. No,
that was
you're right.
the beginning of like, I want to watch this. Then it led to Nickelodeon and Doug and, like the things that we can afford. But still, it started that like excitement of Saturday mornings. You got to just be a freaking kid.
Yeah.
The shows were yours. You weren't sitting there watching the news and playing with your toys while your parents watched the news, or you got the TV Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Yeah.
And we owe a lot of that to him.
Yeah. There's a few shows that every now and then, like how I was, watching some stuff with my kid, and I showed him, we went down this rabbit hole because I showed him Beetlejuice, another Tim Burton movie.
Oh, we've got
Beetlejuice. And first off, I didn't remember how slow the beginning of that movie was, because I think the recollection is pretty much like the last half hour anyway. So another fun fact. But anyway, out of that, we went on to like, because we were searching, and it's like, oh yeah, there was a cartoon called Beetlejuice, like the cartoon. We went down to that, and it's like, oh, and that led us to some other cartoons that I remember as a kid. I didn't like the Beetlejuice cartoon as a kid, really. It wasn't my shtick, but it led me to a bunch of like other, especially like WB Warner Brothers cartoons, like Freakazoid, obviously Animaniacs, but like Freakazoid is one where it was like, it's so meta, and it's like peeking behind the camera and making fun. Like there's an entire episode where they pull out a Freakmobile. So he has like a car now, and he's like, oh, this is very toyegetic. And then they pause, and they're like, toyegetic is a term that was invented by, and it's a real term, and it's about making something in a cartoon that they can turn into toys. And knowing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, I'm like, oh my God, someone came to them in a meeting and was like, yeah, you got to come up with something that's kind of toyegetic. And they're like, we're making this a plot point of the episode.
That's incredible. And I love that so much.
I love when shows do that, because even though they're getting made fun of, the execs don't necessarily care, because they're still accomplishing the thing that they want them to do. But it's like just stuff like that, and like just those like creative shows. Again, I think we went over this, and I don't know if we've ever said it out loud, but like, everyone talks about Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I'm just like, yeah, no, Beakman's World was my thing. Beakman was more my speed.
I liked them both. I was a nerd, so however I could get them. Bill Nye had better merch though, bro. Like you could get the Bill Nye kits. You couldn't get the Beakman kits.
You know what it was though? To me, it was Bill Nye was the polished, like, oh, this is for the kids. Beakman's World felt like someone was organic. Like no one was placating me. No one was like, oh, here, I'm going to serve this to the kids. This was like we're going to do this. It's going to be fun. And, it's not necessarily educational, but it was like sort of like backdoor, like it's actually educational, just we don't notice it. Bill Nye is like, whoa, knowledge is power. And I'm like,
okay, but Bill Nye's a fucking badass now.
No.
Okay, maybe I always saw the future badassery.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying Bill Nye wasn't.
I get it. No,
cool.
I get it.
But Beakman was awesome. And like even watching.
Well, Beakman was like, let's blow this shit up for the sake of blowing this shit up, and let's see what fucking happens. Where Bill Nye was like, all right, kids, now let's all gather around.
Well, there was a lab rat, and then they would talk about how it's just a guy in a lab rat costume. And he's complaining he's only making scale for being on this TV show. Like it was so meta in that sense of like, it's like, oh, it's here for you. But then they do these things where they give you little peeks behind the curtain or like inside jokes. And even as a kid, I'm understanding what's like, making scale means. And it's like, oh, they're basically paying him minimum wage as an actor on this show. I mean, actually pretty sure too. He had a like a t-shirt and he would fold it up with like a pack of cigarettes in it.
Yeah.
On a kid's show about science.
Oh my God. Do you know what I just remembered?
What's that?
Pee Wee Herman's in Blow.
Yes. Yeah. It was like one of his bigger.
There was a time where I don't know why, but the group of people that I was friends with in high school, we would watch Blow all the time. Why? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But he was in Blow. And I just saw it before this. So he was also on Reno 911, which is like, I watch clips of that show all the time just to laugh. But
and that's the thing too, is like above it all, he was a major improvisational comedian. And everything he did, and you look at like, I'm like, again, like looking at like the fact that he apparently was roommates with David Hasselhoff.
That is so incredible.
It's just, I don't know. That stuff is great. And the fact that like everyone's thing is like, yeah, you remembered my birthday. Like, yeah, that was his thing. And even crazier is the fact that like now with everyone saying this, it's like, oh wait, is everyone realizing this now? Is everyone realizing this? Like he was just a really nice guy who would constantly just like reach out to them for their birthdays. And that was his thing. It just, I don't know, super nice guy. But if you look back at like his show and like the people they had on, a lot of them was like he was friends with Cyndi Lauper.
She like just admitted in her biography not too long ago, so many people thought the theme song was sung by someone else. Yeah. And it's Cyndi Lauper that sings the theme song to a show. Uncredited. Yeah, uncredited. Yeah. And I also feel like, the 2002 stuff. Yeah. The articles that I had read today, because my fiance and I he said something. I was like, wasn't he like a child? Yeah. And he was like, I don't think so. People are saying like really nice stuff. So I did a little bit of a deep dive eventually. And, like what you were saying, like he bought this erotica in bulk. He like would buy them in like lots. So you'd buy like just this whole lot and like you'd never be able to get through all of that. Yeah. And they went through all of that. And the guy he bought it from was like, they were unopened. Like he could not have known it was there. And it was just, let's take that off the table and just like focus on the person that everyone's talking about, the people that knew him best. And like you said, he finally got the shot and he didn't forget everybody. He wanted to bring everyone with him. Yeah. And it's so sad because they all kept going. Yeah. And it is nice to see that people just kept throwing him bones, even if it was just for voice acting work and,
Yeah.
I don't know. His life just feels so sad. And you know how I get when I feel like things are sad and it just makes me sad.
Well, I was going to say too, I mean, keep in mind, because I think this is important too, is I think there are a lot of sleazeballs in Hollywood, right? Yeah. There are a ton of sleazeballs in Hollywood. That said, and even after everything happened, he gave an interview, I forget where it was, but it destroyed him. Like the fact that it would constantly, like, it was like, oh yeah, him, like sex predator, like, it destroyed him because he cared so much.
So much, yeah.
And that's why, like, as much as I didn't like the movie, and for years I wrote it off, I'm like, oh my God, Pee-wee's Big Top Pee-wee was ugh. But you look at it and it's like, no, he worked with his friends. He made this movie. Yeah. Like he did something with all of his buddies to like make this thing and like give them roles and I applaud that. Like, it didn't work, right? No one really liked the movie. Don't watch it. It's not worth it. But he tried, right? And like even when he did like a little kids show, he's bringing on all his friends that he worked with over at the Groundlings and all these other places. And I mean, above anything else, the guy showed he had a kind heart.
And I hate, like that term, like people get their flowers when they die. When things like this happen, it makes me so sad because. And I'm sure he was surrounded by people that gave him his flowers while he was going through this cancer. And, when you're going through something like that, people do tend to tell you how great they think you are because they have time to do that. It's not sudden. Yeah. But I also feel like the world is now getting to see a version of someone that, myself included, had kind of written off a little bit. And there was something to be said. And this is to be said with a lot of comedians, unfortunately, that we, die by suicide or substance abuse is they spend their whole lives living for other people, like to make other people laugh. Their whole lives are to bring smiles to other people's faces. And he wanted to create a world where he did that. And he did do that at the sacrifice of himself. I do like the articles. And I remember this vividly about how many fans wrote him support letters
Yeah.
And we're like we're still behind you. And now that he's passed, I think we're getting a little glimpse into how much he meant to other people, because his name kind of is just still the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, he's still the butt of the joke. And, he could say he was okay with it, but I don't think anybody's okay with it for 50 freaking years.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, there was a big tribute to him. Like, the San Francisco Sketch Fest did an entire thing for him, and he showed up to it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was loved, right? He had his Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and
but that
people
happened
had thrown
early,
flowers
like 88.
Yeah.
So, the world still loved him.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. His movie is classic, and it's always fun to just watch Paul Reubens pop up in other stuff because he dedicated his life to a character. And I will say this, right? Because I think he never came off as the kind of person who is like, oh, all right with that character. Like, stop playing the character.
Yes.
Like, even when he revived the stage show, it was like to a resounding success. Like, people wanted it. It wasn't like he was like trying to continue on with this character. And clearly, like, he played other roles. He enjoyed it. Like, he's a comedian. And so he kept going with other things. But like, I don't know. Like, he was like, he had ideas for this character he created that kept his career going for such a long time. And every time he would like step back into it, with the exception of Big Top Pee Wee, like people would embrace it. And for what it's worth, the Netflix movie like did really well. And so that's why there's more lined up, but it just, we'll never see that now. So,
well,
sad.
It's a sad day. And we touched on this before we started recording, but the beginning of the day started with finding out that he had passed. The end of the day with Angus Cloud from Euphoria also had passed. So,
yeah, it's a weird day. And
day.
He was young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old was he?
25, I think.
Yeah, that's rough.
So, but a very sad day for the comedy world. Sad day to my childhood. It feels like part of it is gone. But if you haven't gone back, go watch Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I think it's a good way to honor him and honor that like part of your childhood that you kind of tucked away. But, that's why we I Think You Should Leave, Tom, because we grew up laughing at Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Well, I was going to ask you, if you had to pick one, except for Pee Wee's Big Adventure, I'm taking that off the table. What other Paul Reubens or Pee Wee Herman movie would you recommend?
Movie?
Or anything out there.
Taking Big Adventure off the table, I was a bigger fan of the show.
Pee Wee's.
Don't get me wrong. I should say I was a fan of the show first. Watch the movie after, and then watch the movie so many goddamn times, I probably ruined the VHS rewinding it. But yes, I was a fan of the show first.
Have you ever seen the Christmas special? The Christmas special is supposed to be great.
Definitely have seen the Christmas special. Do not remember it, but maybe that's what I'll revisit in memory.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the Christmas special has like Little Richard, and it's a cavalcade of 80s throwbacks.
I love that.
And
with the exception of Star Wars, I love that in the 80s and 90s and 70s and like that whole like 30, 40 year period, everything had to have a Christmas special. The movie did well. It's getting a Christmas special.
Yeah. Trying to Magic Johnson, Joan Rivers, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, Little Richard, Cher, Charo, Katie Lang, and Grace Jones, among some others who show up.
I love that.
Oh, Frankie Avalon is in there.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is like, these are all people that he was just like, I mean, obviously there's a team behind it and stuff, but like, these are the people that he chose to come on to the Christmas special. Like, it's just like this weird set of people who aren't like so mainstream or like just talented in their own right. Like, that's, I don't know. I celebrate him for that.
Me too.
And even when he was there, he elevated everyone up. And by the way, it was Cyndi Lauper was the theme song. She credited herself as Ellen Shaw, and she was imitating Betty Boop.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Anyway, long live Paul Reubens.
Long live Paul Reubens, and thanks for a really weird obsession with comedy. I was going to say, weird.
I'll make a recommendation if you haven't seen it. Did you ever see the original 1981 HBO special?
No.
Okay, apparently I read somewhere it's supposed to be on the Max.
Okay.
Go watch it. I highly recommend it. And if anything, it also stars Phil Hartman.
Love it. I'm rewatching Gossip Girl right now on Max.
Yeah.
So I'll fit it in there.
Yeah. It's a short. I think it's like 40 minutes long, but it's like totally worth it. And it gives you a glimpse of the early makings of Pee Wee as the character and like,
I like that a lot.
Yeah. But
great.
totally worth watching. Go watch that if you can, or rewatch Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Or Pee-wee's Playhouse if you can find it. I don't even know where it is. I mean, it was
I watched
a Paramount
couple
thing.
clips on YouTube today, and then TikTok had them like nobody's business, and I fell down a rabbit hole.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it was owned by CBS, so if they're smart, this is going to go on Paramount Plus if it's not already there. So I hope it shows up.
I have Paramount Plus, but also, how many fucking streaming services do I pay for? I don't even know. I hope my fiance just never finds out.
We got to like share them. Isn't that we're not supposed to do?
Yeah, I've got 5 goddamn sisters and 2 moms and 2 dads, and I share them with all of them. And it finally, I will say, the Netflix caught on. And my sister tried to log in. They're like, you ain't home. She's like, no, I ain't. Never mind. And I'm out. And I love that instead of paying like the $6.99, she's like, well, I guess I can't watch Netflix anymore. I'm like, you're so fucking cheap.
It's over now. That's it. It's over. Well,
All
worst
right.
case scenario, apparently the entire series is available on DVD also. So it's remastered also. Wow, that's exciting. So
says
wonder
you,
if it's fully
I don't.
remastered.
I have a fucking DVD player. I have an Xbox 360.
either, yeah.
Can I throw it in there?
if it has a disc drive, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
So all right.
Wait, I can on my PlayStation 5, right?
Oh yeah, that works.
I'm saying mine. It's Henry's, but I bought it for myself so I could play Hogwarts Legacy.
Have you played it yet?
Yeah, of course I have.
Okay. I got my
I'm
wife
obsessed.
into it. We got her like a ping controller and everything, and we have to sit her down and play with it. So
All right. Well, completely not on. Well, a little bit. It is Harry Potter's birthday, but yes, I will watch the HBO special, and I'm going to also watch the Christmas special. But maybe I'll wait till Christmas time. I'm a very seasonal watcher.
I'm with you.
Like certain movies and shows I really like to watch in the fall, the winter, the summer. So yeah.
We should make a list of like movies and specials to watch for Christmas. Like
That's a great idea.
Coming to the season. So
That is a wonderful idea. We will get on that.
yeah, cool. All right.
All right.
Well.
Okay. Oh, sad, but bye.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
See you
guys.
next time.